evening and welcome to the November 20th, 2025 meeting of the Portsmouth Planning Board. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And I only have one item on the agenda before I'd like to take an item out of order, but can I have approval of the minutes for the October 16th and November 10th meetings?
Second.
Sorry. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'd like to take item 6A for the CIP out of order because we have the department heads hovering in the back of the room. See if we can get to their issue earlier in the evening rather than later.
Your motion?
Yes.
Motion to take item 6A out of order?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And Mr. Perry, the manager is going to be late. Would you sit for her until she arrives, which
Yes.
should be in about a half an hour? This is not a public hearing on the CIP, but I had one thing I wanted to talk about, and I think Mr. Bowen might have had something he wanted to bring up.
I have some questions.
There are some things. So who wants to go first?
Doesn't matter to me.
Counselor?
Sure. I saved some questions from Monday because I didn't want us to be here too much later on Monday night. I will start out with, this is Public Works. The City Hall renovations, there's a line item on CIP page 110, 111 for City Hall renovations, and I'm curious as to whether or not these are in line or are they separate from what the building committee's currently looking at as a, I'm just making sure that they're sort of planned into what they're planning long-term.
So is that the citywide facilities number?
Yeah,
So that's-
facilities, capital improvements.
So that covers all the buildings for the general government side of things. So it is in addition to City Hall. So it is, not part of, if I understood your question, whether it was tied to.
Well, I just want to make sure whatever plans we have of doing any capital improvements, that they're in line with the long-term plans of possibly relooking at this as the campus for, the renovated police space and the whole building as a whole. That's all.
So we're still at the initial stages of the whole facilities review in terms of municipal complex improvements. And the monies that are shown there are really things that are baked into existing needs.
Okay.
So anything that comes out of that evaluation we anticipate it to be part of the 38 million that's shown in the
police,
the
yeah.
municipal complex portion. We need to look at that, and if there's opportunity to take some of the monies that we had thought to do renovations here from elsewhere and incorporate that into there so that we can leverage the funds, we will do that. But we aren't at that point yet.
Okay. More for you. Don't you go running away. Under the parking lot paving, it reminded me, I know that the garage is now done, and because the LAD lot was listed as one of the many lots that we maintain. And I was curious if that's being returned to availability for parking, or if it's not, if it's staying for storage or whatnot.
I'm sorry, which lot?
The LAD lot, it's the little space outside the garage that's been closed for a while now because it was being used.
The
for-
high bay, yes, the high bay portion of the
Yeah.
Hanover garage.
Yeah.
That will be back into parking inventory once all the dumpsters and things are gone.
Okay, so it's in process of
Yep,
that.
it should be any day.
Okay, let me see on my other page if I have more questions for you before you run away. Oh, yes. We had actually a request from one of the residents on Madison Street if there was a way to move up. They say that the sidewalks desperately need to be redone and that it's somewhat dangerous right now. And I did notice that we actually have Madison Street in an out year. I think it was fiscal year 29 to do the road and do everything. Is there a way of moving that up? Because I'm assuming you won't do the sidewalks until the whole road's done.
So in the combined project at the end, there's the Austin Street area. That includes Madison. And so the utility work needs to be done prior to the road work. We're exploring whether we can pull that forward a year to match up with the utility work and maybe bid it all as one project. But that's 2 years out at a minimum. And that 29 is what was last year. So we haven't moved that back since it's the same as it was last year. But we're looking at opportunities to maybe combine the utility work with that road work. And that could possibly pull it forward a little bit. So next year we'd come back to you and then ask for it to be in 28 if that was the case.
And then maybe we could get the sidewalks done.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. And mechanic pump station, I thought it was very brave to put all of the money for federal and state for that. Is there really an opportunity for federal or state funds to help us with that project?
It's state and federal funds. The state portion is what we're really talking about. We're not talking about federal monies.
Okay.
So there is SRF monies that have been identified, state revolving fund monies. That comes out of the Department of Environmental Services here in New Hampshire. And, you know, we are under the impression, or based on discussions with them, that those monies are good. Eric can nod his head, or? Yes, that is correct.
Okay, because I get nervous. We all know that
No,
state and federal
we are
funds
very cognizant of funding challenges.
My last one for you is really more of to have a conversation. So at the Rockingham Planning Commission, which is why I missed our work session, we were talking about all the things that's been taken out of the 10-year plan, one of which is the study on the Portsmouth traffic circle. And so I threw out there, do you think the state would be willing, if Portsmouth was willing to put in some money, would they be willing to put in some money to try to actually get it done versus trying to wait for them to find a way to get it done 10 years down the road, to at least study it and try to figure it out. So it's a request that maybe, reach out. I think we could sell it on our end. There's such a safety problem there that maybe we could find some money to go towards it. And if we could, maybe have a conversation to see if that's even a possibility with the state side of things.
Obviously, the city council can decide how to allocate funds. I would not recommend at this point participating in the state highways. They would love for us to be taking on a share of that cost. At this point, I would not recommend starting down that road, no pun intended. So I understand the request. I would hope that we could convince the state to make sure that is not pulled off the 10-year.
It's already, it's
That's
most
it.
likely going to get pulled off. If they put anything back on, what I'm hearing is definitely nothing here. So I don't think it's going to happen. So we're going to have a problem.
All right, well, would be happy to have a conversation further about that.
All right, thank you. I just have one more, and it's really for him, or for you, your department. It's about the Seacoast Greenway. Oh, I went to the wrong page. Hang on. This electronic thing always goes. Right, so along North Mill Pond, the extension to downtown, is the contractors that are building there right now, are they going to be paying for any portion of that greenway, or are we building it all ourselves? I guess is what I was trying to figure out, because I know that I got the section right in front of the development was part of the development. I can't remember.
While Peter's coming up,
Peter is there. I didn't see him out there.
One Range will be, the project at One Range will be building their portion, but Peter can speak to that.
Yeah, that has been a challenging project. We spent a lot of time doing some sampling. We did get a grant, an ARM fund grant, so we have quite a bit of money to do a living shoreline.
Okay.
We have budgeted money to do the park, but we look like we're a little bit short on that. And we're looking at creative ways to combine that project with the project next door to see if we can get some savings to make both projects work together as one. But we don't have an answer yet, so I put it in here to get the park funded. We may at the last minute be able to pull that, but we're still at the stage of trying to figure out where all that money is going to come from to get that work done.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm done.
Bill?
So this would be for Peter as well. So the micro,
Which Peter?
Yeah, exactly. There's multiple Peters.
Peter Britz. So this is about the microtransit question. There was quite a bit of concern about the availability, the real availability of federal state money for that. The question, the basic question is whether we have the transportation expertise in-house to work with Brad Nichols from Coast to figure out how we can improve and deliver the services that we think are needed. They do both the fixed route and the demand response stuff, and they've been with us for decades, and we make up about 10% of their budget, and they can, if need be, have access to computer modeling software, and they're good at this. So the question is, if we don't have an outside consultant paid federal, state, is it possible to do it in-house with cooperation with Coast?
Well, it's interesting that you raise that right now, because as we're here, the Sustainability Committee is discussing that very issue in conference room A, and I was there for the beginning of the discussion, and it turns out there is actually some state money we can apply for, but it's not guaranteed. That's an 80-20 split, so the state would pay 80%, the city would pay 20%, which could look at that. The initial point of the discussion was, though, instead of microtransit, looking at transportation more globally as a term. How do we improve transportation, public transportation in the city? And I think they're going to be coming back to the council with a recommendation. So in terms of whether we could do it in-house, I don't think we'd have fully the expertise, because we'd want to bring in people that do the microtransit type of transportation, the rideshare, and coast as well, and then a lot of discussion about local businesses participating. So I think that sort of work group would be the initial part of it. They may decide, and I think they want to put money aside to do this, is to put money aside to do a study. But it may be that there'd be enough information out of that working group to go forward with some sort of proposal for actual transportation instead of a study.
Be good to have an integrated system with Coast as the base of it, as they currently are.
Yep. And Rad Nichols may be here later to talk, but I think he's going to miss his turn.
You good?
Peter Rice, where did he go? Did he hide? There he is, sorry. While you're walking, Peter, I wanted to reference the BI 26 PW 54, the new parking garage section of the capital improvement plan. Right now, we have identified $150,000 in revenues, and that is for, I'm assuming it's part of the study.
Site selection.
Site selection,
You know, you were on the committee that I was on over a year ago, the parking needs assessment, or somewhat, I can't remember the long name that was there, and the consultants were at that time were saying 650 spaces were going to be needed, I think, in 5 years, if not sooner. We're now a year past that point. I feel like there's a sense of urgency. We've seen a lot of projects come through here, and we're using parking as a utility in the downtown. And so I know roughly the pre-design and all of that can for a parking garage is roughly around 10% of the design fee, and looking at $32 million for a total construction cost, probably in today's dollars, and trying to keep under the 10% cap of the budget for CIP. I'm wondering if it's smart to suggest putting an additional $3 million to get this going in the plan, and I want your thoughts on that.
We went through the study. The study did show that there was a need, and I think the reason we didn't put the number in there at this point is we didn't have a site. So we wanted to get a site nailed down, and once we get the site, we would start having a larger conversation about it. I think it'd be perfectly appropriate to put an identifier number in there of $3 million. That's about what I would have, if we were thinking about starting the design effort, would be 10% roughly. So I would be in support of that if that was the decision of the committee, the planning board.
All right. And I don't know, Rick, if that requires a motion or?
It will. But
Okay, we'll wait till the end of the discussion.
if you want to make the motion, we can, I would like to discuss it. Well,
Sure.
Would you want to make a motion to add 3 million to that?
Yeah, it'd be an additional $3 million, and I would need your recommendation here, Peter, on the funding mechanism.
Bond.
It'd be bonding, yeah.
Bonding, okay.
Yeah.
So we would add 3 million to the bond, so in total, the subtotal at the bottom would be 3.15 million.
If I may, I would recommend putting it into 28. The site selection process would entail some basic enabling work, such as geotech, and that would, we would need to have build consensus within the city. So I don't think it'd be a problem if we put it into 28 versus putting it right into this year.
I just want to send a message of urgency to get this going, because it's going to be a couple years before, we at least 2 years from now until there's any dirt moved. And it's probably going to be a 2-year construction period. And so I just don't want this to be like next year's problem.
Sure, I mean, if the board decides to push it in there, I would not be opposed to it.
I think there's two issues here from my perspective. There's the planning issue, which is what we're here for, and then there's the actual budgetary issue, which the council will be dealing with. From a planning perspective, I'm looking at roughly $30 million garage that we need soon. And our capital improvements plan is a 5 to 7 year planning tool. So if we were to divide that out and other things aside, if I could put 5 or 6 million as a line item to start this year, I'd recommend that. That would put us well over the 10% figure. By the way, the number that the Vice Chair mentioned does keep us under the 10%.
Okay.
Not by a lot, but it's there. So I think it's important to plug it in and to plug it in soon. If it's not used, if it's not budgeted, it's not budgeted. But I think the message, as the Vice Chair said, it's important to send that message to the public and the council that this is something we need to start planning for. And if we don't assign some number this year, it's going to be a bigger number next year and a bigger number the following year. So I appreciate your perspective, and it's completely logical, but I'd lobby for putting it sooner.
Sure, and by having it sooner, it allows us to really start focusing on the pro forma for the garage itself, and then, how the rate structure would then play out in order to support that. As you know, taxes are not used to support these facilities.
Right.
It's all revenue-based. So this would not be something that the taxpayers would be paying for. So, I mean, I think it gives us a tool to really start playing out what the pro forma would look like and help look at the rate structure. So it's perfectly appropriate to start putting money towards this.
So to reiterate my motion, I'd like to add $3 million to the bond lease line item under FY '27. And before I get a second, I just want to point out, we're not yet specifically talking about a location. I know that's probably going to be the next public question people have, is where is this going to go? That's going to have a whole process into itself. So this is just about having the appropriate money in place so we can get that process started.
Second.
Thank you.
Discussion. No discussion?
Beth has,
Yes.
I feel I should weigh in. I guess I go back and forth as to whether or not fiscal year 27 or 28 is the better year to put it in. And I understand where you're coming from. It's just like, will we actually be far enough down the road that that much money makes sense, I guess. Maybe it's a smaller portion this year and then another portion the following year, and breaking it up a little bit might make a little bit more sense based off of what actually will happen.
Well, in my mind, it's already a smaller number. As I said, I'd rather see 5 or 6. But staying under the 10%, which I think is
Do
important.
2 in each year, 27, 28, and 29.
It helps you in out years, though, in that if we can, the more we can plug in under 27, then you're going to have other funding problems in 20, that are not identified in 28. That if more of that 10% is going towards the garage in 28, then you've handcuffed yourself a little bit.
Maybe 2 this year and 3 million next year. Let me make both of you
I
happy.
think it's going to be more than $3 million next year. Is my point.
Yeah. it'll be
I'm
more
doing a
than-
little negotiation here. No one's working with me though.
Well, our number isn't hard, as you know. It's a recommendation.
It's a recommendation. I know.
You done?
I'm good.
Paul, did you?
no, I'm good.
Any other comment?
I guess
Yes, Andrew.
I would generally, not side, but favor Tony's opinion because there's so much development in the downtown corridor where with all of the infrastructure and street shape changes, if we have the ability to plan that sooner rather than later, then it may be best to try to line it up and have it in concert with some of those other developments so that if we're looking at parking and we're looking at these things and we have at least a general idea that we are in fact moving forward with one, we can take that into consideration with some of these developments.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Peter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we'll make that change with the recommendation. Any other comments on the CIP. Any other questions of the staff? Yes, Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to staff for all the work they put in on this plan. I was pleased to see that there's a small ask in the plan for an artist live-work studio space study, that it's not all, sewers and sidewalks in the plan. And I would hope to see that. I know there was some talk about maybe finding some alternative ways to fund that or to study it, but I think that's an important part of the plan that was presented to us. I also wanted to ask a question of perhaps the fire chief regarding Marine One.
Good evening, Bill McQuillan, Fire Chief.
Hi, Chief. Thank you. Marine One, this is a marine rescue vessel. And it looks like the price, the cost of this vessel from the last CIP to this one changed quite a bit. And it doesn't seem to be an unreasonable number for a marine rescue vessel. But if you could perhaps tell us just a little bit about that vessel and the kind of the scope of the need for it. Like, we know that there are some folks in mental health crisis entering the water, but perhaps there's other reasons why people are being rescued from the water, recreational or commercial activity.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So to give the planning board sort of a perspective here, the city has owned a fireboat since the early 90s. Back originally, the vessel was a recreational vehicle that was then converted into our use with an outboard pump that we were able to flow water off of and then be able to pick people up. Subsequent to that, we obtained a vessel through some federal grant program, and that boat was significantly larger and enclosed. It also had a dedicated motor and engine for that pump. Maintenance became an issue with that vehicle, and as did training to operate the vehicle. And the policy decision was made to dispose of that boat before it became more expensive and to revisit the issue. In 2017, the city bought a rigid hull inflatable that has a slight bimini top on it. So it's open to the elements, and that vessel also has a small pump, outboard pump, and the ability to flow water on it, as the previous ones did. However, the reality is while we are responsible for fire protection in the river and in the harbor itself, we rarely use the pump for that purpose. So the real use of that vehicle has been for rescue purposes, either subjects in the water, reported to be in the water, boating accidents, boats adrift or in distress. And the challenge that we have on the river is twofold. One, the fact that the river is as swift as it is, and secondly, right, the weather conditions. So after reviewing what the boat has historically and actually been used for more and more, it's apparent that it's more of a water ambulance, essentially. And so what we were looking to do is to upgrade the capability of the city's fireboat and to have a protected space to be able to treat people after we retrieve them from the water or get them off of a damaged or disabled vessel and get them out of the elements, and also to keep our crews, the men and women that are on this boat, from being exposed to the winter elements. So, on a night like tonight, right, they're out there on an open hull boat, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So last year, we changed the amount that was budgeted in the capital program to show what the cost of a boat that would be enclosed for the cabin, for the crew, and for the subjects being rescued. And we made that switch last year, and then we brought it forward again this year. But I'm happy to take any more questions you may have on it. Hopefully, I know you asked me what time it was, and I told you how to build a watch. I apologize.
No, thank you, Chief. It looks like some folks might have some questions for you on this.
Ryan?
Do we have any working contracts with other cities that are right on the water where they have a boat or they use our boat? I know like Rye, I believe, is also responsible for the Isles of Shoal. Obviously, we're right across from the shipyard. So are there any deals or contracts or ways that you work with other fire departments, or are we solely the only boat?
Thank you for the question. No, we don't have an agreement in place with any of the other municipalities or with any other agency with respect to our waterfront capability or for them to come to us either.
We don't have mutual aid?
We do have mutual aid, but we don't have a specific agreement with respect to boats. Right?
Yeah, if I may. Okay.
Andrew had his hand up. So.
Go ahead.
So a boat's on fire in the river, what happens?
We'll respond. The challenge is there aren't that many other boats out there that are capable of putting water on a burning boat.
So the shipyard won't respond? I'm just curious. I'm assuming the shipyard must have
No,
fire.
they do, but their primary mission is to protect the naval assets over there. So we don't have an agreement in place.
Okay, wow.
That was largely going to be my question as well, is sort of the obligation or jurisdiction, if you will, of the waterways and where Coast Guard starts and we start and stop, as well as the shipyard or beyond the river. Obviously, our purview is visually right in the Piscataqua River, but beyond that, if it does encompass anything, towards Great Bay or the ocean.
So again, our responsibility is here in the city. If we're called to go somewhere else, we will. But this is also a case of capability. There have been instances where we've been requested to go out of the mouth of the river where perhaps it was beyond the scope and capability of our boat to be able to handle it, with weather conditions.
Sure.
So we, would refuse the mission, so to speak. The Coast Guard has their mission, and they're certainly the primary, search and rescue agency in the area. But like everyone and everybody else, they're being asked to do more and more with less, right? And their staffing at their station has been reduced in the time that I've been here in my career.
So just to finish the point off, most likely if a vessel was on fire in the river, the Portsmouth Fire Department would make sure to rescue people out of the water, make sure the boat doesn't run into some other object, but you're not putting it out. Probably unlikely.
It's unlikely. My folks are trained. We send our folks down to the port of Virginia every year to be certified to fight fires on ships. It's certainly a whole lot different fighting a fire 2 or 3 holds below deck than it is in a residential or a commercial building. So we do have the capability and that knowledge, but once you get into some of the larger vessels, firefighting it's a lot more complex, and the issues become a whole lot different with respect to navigation of the port, who's in charge, right? Again, the captain of the port and the Coast Guard's got a lot more to say, as does the ship owner, than I do as fire chief.
I hope you find my questions, they're not critical. I'm
No,
just
not at all.
informative. Yeah, that's
No,
interesting.
I'm trying to be as informative as I can.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I appreciate the dialogue and the questions from the board on this matter. I think this is an important consideration for the city, and the final question I have for you, Chief, is what is the life expectancy of this vessel?
I would imagine it's at least 10 years or so. The challenge is going to be for us is what manufacturer we're going to be able to go with here, and what's going to be available.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, I have a question based on what you said. If the city of Portsmouth gets this capability to respond that other communities don't have, it seems like you may be called on more than you are now because you have more capability. Is there a reason that the city should talk to some of the other communities and some of the other agencies to see if there's a way to share some of this going forward in the future?
Excellent question, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for it. I'm happy to entertain any discussion with any neighboring municipality with respect to shared resources and how we can tackle some of these challenges.
Is somebody charged? If, let's say you have to go into Maine to do something, is there a charge for that?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good question you asked there, Mr. Chairman, because I believe that the state Fish and Game, when they rescue a hiker or an off-highway recreational vehicle user, that person can be charged and often is charged for the use of those resources. Unless you have a boat registration or an off-highway vehicle registration, and I believe now you can also register yourself as a hiker.
You can get
I don't know if you
insurance.
register your shoes or what it is, but you, if you have that registration, you're not charged. But the state Fish and Game is recovering costs of rescue. So something, I don't know how you would monetize that or.
A bigger discussion that the chief said he's willing to participate in. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Any other questions for, yes, Bill?
I'd just like to repeat the observation. It would have been helpful to me in this exercise to, given the growth of the city, about 10% projects in the pipeline and many more to come, to know where the choke points were in the infrastructure of the city. Sewer, water, schools, and other recreation.
UTIL is gathering that information as a part of the master plan process. So that is actually happening
And
literally as we speak.
If I might add to that, we've been given periodic updates to the council with regard to sewer and water capacity, and we are well within our limits, and we can share that information with the planning board if you like.
Any other questions of staff on the CIP?
We had a
So-
million while you were gone.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think we need a vote to recommend the CIP as amended.
You have a hand.
Does the board wish to take public comment? Any objections to public comment?
No.
Name and address at the podium, please.
You want to time it?
3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Jeffrey Cooper. I live at 227 Park Street, and I'm here representing the Arts and Cultural Commission, which submitted the request for the feasibility study for Artists Who Live Workspace. I wish to thank you, Mr. Garland, for your nod in support of that, and we're hoping that you will have a unanimous vote to include that in your final recommendation. I'd like to emphasize for your consideration that this is something that was brought up in the 2002 cultural plan as well as the 2023 cultural plan. So it's been on the table for well over 20 years. And we acknowledge that the artist community has been a major contributor not only to the culture of Portsmouth, but to the economic well-being of the city as well. It's one of the significant drivers of the local economy. So, you know, the feasibility study would be a significant, it's like a way to start off the process of looking for places where we can support our artist community in this particular way. We have a quote, the number $65,000 is not a number pulled out of the air. It's actually a quote that we have from a corporation, a nonprofit called ArtSpace, which has significant experience in doing this kind of a project all over the country. The question has come up as to whether the city staff could handle this kind of a thing, and it's the view of the Arts and Cultural Commission that a company with real expertise in this particular area is really needed. They have experience with business models for such projects and finding locations. They have experience with getting public input and finding financing and leadership support for these types of projects. So, you know, we're urging that this be funded as a separate request rather than put off to the city staff where it could easily become a back burner issue. I guess that's pretty much it. So we're looking for your unanimous support to include this in your final recommendation. We think that it'd be very significant when the city council finally votes on it, that, you know, your support really is consequential. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other public comment? Would you care to vote on this?
I think I would abstain.
Okay.
Joe might want to abstain too, but I don't want to speak for Joe.
We need a motion and a vote.
Closing public,
Public comment is closed. It wasn't a hearing.
okay,
I don't have
public comments is closed.
Don't have to formally.
Now it's closed.
Motion
A
to,
motion to vote to recommend adoption of the capital improvement plan to city council as as amended.
second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Abstention.
Okay. We need determination of completeness, subdivision review for Martin Hustledge as owner for property at 4850 Langdon Street. Requesting preliminary and final subdivision review approval for subdivision of one lot into two lots with a single-family dwelling and accessory dwelling proposed on each lot with associated site improvements. This property is on Assessor's Map 138, Lot 47, and lies in the General Residence C or GRC district.
Motion to determine that item A is complete
Second.
according to the subdivision review regulations.
Was that a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Also request the same property, same description for site plan review completeness.
Mr. Chair, do we need one of our alternates to sit for Beth?
I didn't see her leave. Yes. So, since I asked you to sit for the manager, Frank, would you continue now for counselor?
Yeah, I'll accept.
And you are fully seated and present, and we're precisely on time. I was very impressed
Wonderful.
by that.
Thank you.
Site plan review acceptance?
Vote to determine that item A is complete according to the site plan review regulations.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm going to start the public hearings. The procedure for public hearings, as folks may know, everybody who's been here before, we have a presentation by the proponent, questions by the planning board members, public comment limited to comments to, for, or against the application. Give your name and address. If you wish to speak, you have to speak. There's up to 3 rounds of speaking. If you wish to speak in the second or third rounds, you must speak in the preceding rounds. First round is 3 minutes oral comment only. Second is 5 minutes maximum. You can include a presentation. And the third round is up to 5 minutes oral comment only. And then the hearing is closed and the board deliberates. First item is, again, the request of Martin Hustledge as owner for property at 4850 Langdon Street for preliminary and final subdivision and site plan approval for the subdivision of one lot into 2 lots with single-family dwelling and accessory dwelling proposed on each lot with associated site improvements. Again, this property is Assessor's Map 138, Lot 47, is in the GRC district. Who is here to present this application?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Cook with TF Moran, here on behalf of the owner, Martin Hustledge. We're here before you, as mentioned, seeking subdivision and site plan review and approval for the proposed project located at 48 and 50 Langdon Street. Project site shown as Map 138, Lot 47, is 9,927 square feet, located within the General Residence C zoning district, and is located at the corner of Langdon Street and McDonough Street. Lot currently contains a multifamily dwelling. There are 2 curb cuts along Langdon Street, as well as a garage and a deck to the rear of the site. The site is currently served by municipal water and sewer, as well as gas and overhead electric. The project proposes the subdivision of the existing lot into 2 new lots to be defined as Lot 47-0 and 47-1, as referenced by the city assessor. Lot 47-0 will be 5,664 square feet, located on the southern end of the lot, and Lot 47-1 will be 4,264 square feet, located on the northern end of the lot, adjacent to that intersection. Both lots meet zoning requirements for the General Residence C district, with each lot being larger than the required 3,500 square feet, and each lot having greater than 70 feet of frontage and 50 feet of depth. Each new lot is proposed to contain a 3-story single-family dwelling, each with an attached ADU. Each proposed dwelling meets required yard dimensions and structural limitations, and open space requirement is met with over 50% on each new lot. Each site will have access off of Langdon Street via a 24-foot wide driveway, and each site will have a 2-car garage and parking space for the attached ADU. Lot 47-1's driveway, which is the closest to the McDonough and Langdon intersection, will be 30 feet away from that intersection, more than twice as far as the existing closest driveway is. This will result in much safer conditions for traffic entering and exiting the site, as well as going through that mentioned intersection. There is an existing sidewalk in front of the site along Langdon Street. As part of the improvements, that sidewalk will be widened to 5.5 feet to meet Portsmouth City standards. There are also drainage improvements included as part of the project. Today, the site kind of drains towards Langdon Street from the back. The proposed improvements in site grading will retain that same stormwater characteristics. There are 3 yard drains proposed along the Langdon Street side of each site, which will collect the runoff and route it to the municipal drainage system and catch basin in Langdon Street. This will allow the site water runoff to reach that same point while eliminating any runoff that would, as today, sheet across the sidewalk, causing some worse conditions in winter weather. The new improvements will limit that kind of ice formation. The proposed improvements will result in equal rates of runoff in the existing and proposed conditions. The site will be served by utility connections similar to what exists today. We've coordinated the water and sewer service with DPW and will continue to work with them throughout the construction process. Electrical service, which today comes from overhead electric service from poles at either corner of the site, will be converted to underground service from those same utility poles. There is no gas service proposed for the new dwellings. As noted in comments provided by the TAC, there will be disturbance within Langdon Street for utility work. Applicant has agreed to mill and pave the roadway curb to curb at any point where it was disturbed. We are proposing 4 trees on site. These will be kindred spirit red oaks, will reach a height of 20 to 30 feet, but only spread about 6 to 8 feet wide, much narrower than your traditional oak tree. These trees have been selected for urban growing conditions and will complement the existing tree canopy on site. Project has undergone review by the Portsmouth Technical Advisory Commission and the Parking and Traffic Safety Committee. We've addressed concerns raised by each group and have made them in the packet that was submitted to the city about a month ago. The applicant has reviewed the conditions of approval laid out in the staff memo for tonight's meeting and has no objections to what was listed. Thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant? No questions?
How many street parking spaces? I mean, it's not painted now. Do you expect to lose?
We expect, I think you can fit 4 cars out front now. It'll be 2 cars after the driveways.
Net loss of 2.
Net loss
of 2.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody here on Zoom? I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody here on Zoom wishes to speak to, for, or against this application?
There's no one on Zoom.
Last call. Anybody here or on Zoom wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? I'm going to close the public hearing.
Chairman, I move we vote to find the subdivision application meets the requirements set forth in the subdivision regulations and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Any discussion on the findings? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I move we vote to grant the preliminary and final subdivision approval with the following stipulations: 2.1, 2.2, 2.3.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question. Given this neighborhood has had a historic battle with parking, and it's parking at the end of the day. Are we able to mandate that an owner does not prevent or prohibit a tenant from parking in the driveway with an ADU?
You want to prohibit it? Or
No, that they cannot prohibit. Meaning, if the ADU is rented, the primary owner of the house can't say to the tenant, you can't park in the driveway.
Well, by ordinance, they have to provide a space for the ADU.
I know that they have to provide it, but in a lease agreement or arrangement, is it something that we would have purview over?
It's
I think we would, it's in the zoning ordinance. If they, yeah. I think
make it a condition, I think, right?
And it's merely a question, not trying to bog down this specific approval, but with more and more ADUs becoming prevalent, it is definitely a consideration. So just trying to iron out how that would go.
It's a good question. Do you want to do anything with it, or just want
No,
to talk?
not
Okay.
in this specific application, no.
Any other discussion? Is motion on the subdivision?
Yes, yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Keep going, Paul?
Site plan. Vote to find that the site plan application meets the requirements set forth in the site plan regulation, section 2.9, evaluation criteria, and adopt the findings of facts as presented.
Second.
Discussion on the findings? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Vote to grant site plan approval with the following conditions as outlined in the staff memo.
2.1 through 2.6, second.
Thank you.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're approved. Thank you. Next item is request of Perkins Quokka Joint Realty Joint Revocable Trust, as owner for property located at 224 Broad Street, Unit 3, requesting wetlands conditional use permit from Section 10-10-1750 for replacement and expansion of an existing 192 square foot sunroom and the demolition of a 286 square foot rear deck with new construction for 384 square foot addition to the existing sunroom and a new 367.5 square foot rear deck and regrading of a portion of the site, including retaining wall, stone drip edge and underdrain for stormwater control, replacement of the existing lawn with a micro clover seed mix and a planting plan. This property is located on Assessors Map 131, Lot 13-3, and lies in the General Residence GRA District. Is there anyone here to present this application? This has been approved once before.
Just a year ago, right?
It expired.
August of '24.
Yeah, in August.
Would you like to present it, Peter?
No, I would recommend you,
Postpone?
postpone it to December.
A motion to postpone this application to December.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm assuming
Any opposed? It's continued to December. Go ahead.
assuming the applicant will be notified.
We will, let them know, yeah.
We have a request of 0 to 120 Wild Rose Lane LLC, owner for property at 60 Pleasant Point Drive, requesting a wetland conditional use permit from Section 10-10-1750 for an after-the-fact permit for the installation of riprap shoreline in a tidal wetland and the vegetated wetland buffer of a tidal wetland. This application comes after previously approved vegetated shoreline was not installed and the current armoring approach was used and resulted in approximately 1,588 square feet of disturbance for regrading the slope, installation of boulders, and new plantings. This property is on Assessors Map 207, Lot 13, and lies in the Single Residence or SRB District. Who is here to present this application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name's Tim Phoenix. I'm an attorney at Hopeful Phoenix, Gormley and Roberts here in Portsmouth. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, 120-0 Wild Rose Lane LLC, and with me are the principals and effective owners of the property, John and Michelle Morris, who are in the second row, first couple of seats. I've got the rest of our team is here. You know some of them. Eric Weinrub from Altus Engineering is here, and he's done the technical work on this site from the start. Jay Obie from TF Moran is the designer of the plans that are before you and that were submitted to and approved by DES, which will be slightly amended. We also have Tom Ballestero, who's an engineer and professor and well-known expert on shoreline issues from, he's works at UNH, and I believe he's worked often with the city, as have others. Ben Auger and Drew Wilson from Auger Building Company are here, also in the second row next to the Morrises. They are in charge of the actual overall construction on the site, which is 60 Pleasant Point Drive. The overall design intention for that site is to remove the substandard old home out there, do site work including removal of invasive species, and of course this shoreline stabilization that we are here discuss. And finally, also with me is Kirsten Fordham from Riverside Pickering. They are well known in the area and have worked, all of these people really have worked with the city, before the city and with the city on numerous projects. Riverside Pickering does a lot of the construction of revetments and seashore stabilization all over the seacoast of New Hampshire, the lakes of New Hampshire, and the seacoast of Maine. So the overall proposal that's before you is for you to approve via an amended conditional use permit a hybrid living shoreline, which is basically hard armor at the bottom. You'll see it on the plans. And the purpose it was built was to remedy this problem that you see before you in these photographs. There's a number of them. The shoreline was essentially unstable at the time the Morrises bought the property, but then there were severe storms a couple of years ago that basically wiped out a good portion of the shore, and you can see the where it goes up to the grass level. It's been cupped out as a result of the storms, and so that was the problem that was sought to be remedied. Originally, after the Morrises purchased the property, Altus Engineering was hired as the technical expert. They worked with landscape architect Matthew Cunningham and came before this board in late 23 with a conditional use permit application that was what I would call an entire living shoreline. In other words, no hard armor. That was approved by this board at the time. I would also mention that the hybrid living shoreline, the hard armored living shoreline that we're here to talk about and ask for your approval for, is a little bit less than 50% of the entire shoreline of the Morris property. The other, approximately 49%, 51% was originally approved and is remaining as a total living shoreline. So after the CUP was granted in late 23, 12/27/23, the applicants had to go to DES to get approval. When they did that, they hired TF Moran and in particular Jay Obrey because the DES requires an engineer's stamp. The architects did not have an engineer's stamp on their approved plans via this CUP, so Jay Obrey was hired and TF Moran was hired to get the DES application filed and approved. In doing so, he's obligated by his job, his degree, and his license to do an analysis of what is needed to provide proper shoreline protection for the shoreline that he's working on. And when he did that, he concluded that the total living shoreline on approximately 50% of the shoreline, because of this problem right here, was not sufficient. He therefore designed a living shoreline, which was a combination of the hard armor at the bottom, significant plantings above that on the slope, and then more plantings. I think there's over 1,000 plants at the top of the rise there as it approached the lawn. In January of 2024, we all know there were significant, two significant storms. That's what this photograph, and there are others, are intended to show you. So that is the starting point. You can also see those photos in the report of Tom Ballestero, which is part of the package that's been submitted to you. I'll get back to that a little bit more. So as I said, TF Moran designed what it believed and opines is a reasonable and feasible shoreline protection provided the engineer stamp, did a thorough and complete analysis, and their report is submitted with the October 23rd, 2025 submission to the board by Altus Engineering, which also includes a memo from myself and Jay of TF Moran going through and explaining how we meet the requirements for the issuance of a CUP. The TF Moran analysis, after submitting to DES, required them to respond to 2 requests for more information, RFMIs, through the summer of 2024. After that was done, DES issued its permit for this hybrid living shoreline that, again, was not the approved CUP by this board in late 2023. Through that process, the state, the DES, finally issued a permit approving that on November 4th, 2024. It should be also in your packet. We also submitted earlier in the summer, including a submission by me and Eric for the initial CUP application. This October 23rd submission updated that with the information that was obtained from the time of the initial submission, which includes the Ballestero report and an expert peer review engineer firm, actually 2 of them, that were hired by the city staff to analyze this submission by TF Moran and the DES approval. So you may be asking yourselves, so what happened between the time that this was originally approved as a living shoreline and the time it was built, and why weren't this group back before the planning board for an amendment before it was built? This is my understanding. One of the issues is that the DES, when it sent the permit for the hybrid living shoreline, it sent it to the clerk and to the Conservation Commission. It did not include the plan, and I'm kind of surmising something, but it was received, it was filed. In the minds of many, I believe it was believed to be an approval for what had already been approved by you folks as the living shoreline. I haven't been told that, but that's sort of how I'm envisioning things. What I want you to hold on to is that the people who were dealing with us on the ground after that permit, after the original permit and then the amended DES approval with the hybrid, are essentially the construction people. So they got the plans and did what they normally do, which is figure out the plans. They go to the building inspection department and says, here's what we're going to do. Are we good? Well, they submitted the plans, and in January of 2023, there's emails between city staff and specifically Kirsten Fordham of Riverside Pickering and Drew Wilson from Auger Building Company, basically primarily to the building inspection department, but here's what we're doing. Are we good?
Tim, just real quickly, I'm trying to follow this. Yeah. You just said January 23. Do you mean January 24?
I meant January 25.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you for clarifying that. And do it again if I get off track. So everything that's before you today has happened really in 2025 since the late 24 issuance of the DES permit. So, and I'm not justifying anything that was done. I'm not here to blame anyone or find that the city's responsible or anything. It was essentially an oversight. The building people wanted to build this shoreline protection. They went to the planning department. Planning department looked it over and said, yeah, you don't need a building permit, go ahead. That wasn't accurate. It should have come back here before any of that happened, but it didn't. So the builders at Riverside Pickering and Auger Building thought they were okay and built it. It took about 3 months to build it from middle of the winter. Was done in March or April, and they thought everything was fine. Well, lo and behold, it wasn't, because after it was built, the staff, Kate O'May, came out and took a look at it and said, wait a second, you guys didn't build what we approved. You needed to come back for a CUP. That was the big which leads us here today. So the city issued a cease and desist, and said, you've built something that wasn't permitted with an amendment, so you got to go get another you got to get an amended CUP for at least for the portion of this that is not what we approved as the living shoreland and is now a hard armored shoreland. The staff was concerned, and rightly so, about that happening without coming back before you, and also it was the approval that TF Moran designed and DES approved, was that reasonable under the circumstances. So the city hired a company, DeRosa Engineering, which in turn hired a company called Summit Engineering to analyze the submissions and render an opinion on behalf of the city, basically in a standard peer review, to determine whether or not the design by TF Moran and approved by DES was reasonable and feasible, and bottom line, met the requirements for the issuance of a conditional use permit under the City of Portsmouth's ordinances. And that is what happened. So on, let's see, the emails, and I have them here if you want them. They were also included in my letter to this board back in, I think, August. Hold on. My initial letter with submissions, which included the Ballestero reports, was submitted on July 30th, 2025, and included those emails. And again, I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth. I'm just telling you how it was interpreted. I'll give them to you again. You can read them yourself, but I'm explaining how our folks interpreted that email exchange. Those were on January 8th through January 13th of 2025, after which it was built. So it was built. We agree, as I said, that it should have been back here for a CUP. The delay between the finding in or about May or June by the city staff that it didn't have the right, a complete CUP is what's been delayed, and we've been dealing with the experts. We had some meetings with the staff. There was a site walk. We've had to go to the Conservation Commission. We've been there a couple of times. They did a site walk. Then the experts were hired, DeRosa and Summit, and they did a site walk and then started their review. So we, because we had hired TF Moran, who had designed it, just to feel safer about it, we contacted and hired Tom Ballestero, who is here, as I've said, who performed his own independent investigation and review of all of the materials to determine whether he thought, and as I said, he's a well-known expert on shoreline issues, and he issued a report that is part of your packet. I think I submitted it back in late July, and it's also included in the packet that Eric at Altus submitted on October 23rd. You have it. I presume you've read it. I can cite certain portions of it, which I won't unless you want me to, but basically he analyzed the slope and the factors such as that causing that, and his conclusion was that the hybrid living in the hard armor was necessary and reasonable and therefore feasible under the circumstances. So we went forward with that information, then through the review by DeRosa. I will also mention that at the end of this all, and I think it's the last document in Altus Engineering's October 23rd, 2025 submission, is the as-built. And when the as-built was done by Easterly Survey, there were a couple of things noted. A portion of the hard armor is slightly, very slightly, water side of the highest observable tide line, or the hot line. Also, the length of the hard armored and hybrid living shoreline was somewhat longer than the original approval by DES. We know about that. We have submitted alternate plans to DES. We have followed up with them as recently through Eric as today, and they say they have it, they're working on it, and we're expecting their response soon. We don't expect any problems with that. The reason I bring it up is because the staff report, correctly states that there's there's what they call fill in the wetland and also in the buffer. The total amount of stone that's over the hot line is 39 square feet of this whole revetment. It's very, very small. We considered whether to go in and, cut the stones back or move them. We believe, and I believe it's contained in the expert's report, that that would be more harmful than leaving them where they are. We don't think the stone is in the wetland. We think the stone is over the hot line, but in an area before it would normally meet the water. The water comes up that far when you have storms, but not normally. And it definitely is longer. So, I just wanted you to be aware that we're not only did we not proceed, if you will, as scofflaws compared to the original CUP granted, the other issues we are dealing with DES, we have analyzed that. We think that the decision is going to be leave it the way it is. And the reason that happened is because when you're taking stones that are the size of a desk or a small car and putting them on a slope, and it's not entirely precise. One of the efforts that we were trying to meet is that at the top of this slope in certain areas there were mature trees. And so the effort was to place the stones without taking out more land, which would risk those trees. And when all that happened, a couple of them are very slightly over that hot line, as I mentioned. So turning to what happened next, we went to the Conservation Commission a couple times. As I said, the experts from DeRosa and Summit were hired. They issued their report, I want to say in September, I think it was September 26th. They issued their report. I'll give you some excerpts, but I interpret that report, which you should have and hopefully you've read, is fully in support of the design and installation, designed by T.F. Moran and the installation by Pickering as approved by DES. As a result of that, when we last went to the Conservation Commission, that issue and that factor was discussed, and the Conservation Commission unanimously voted to recommend approval to this board. I want to take a moment because I think this is one of the factors that I hope makes it easy for you folks to make this judgment is the hard armor, partial hard armor, the hybrid living shoreline is what should have been done and approved in the first place. It is clear from the experts, all of the experts, that the soft shoreline along this area was not going to be sufficient to protect this land. So a couple of quotes that I think are important from the DeRosa and Summit reports, and you can read it for yourself, but I'm going to tell you what it says in the page it's on. There appears to be no engineering support for this first wetland CUP, the soft shoreline, so to speak, designed by Matthew Cunningham Landscape Design. That's on page 4 of the DeRosa report. We find the second WCUP application contained sound engineering design, that's the one before you today, was reviewed by a certified wetland scientist and a professional engineer and was appropriate for the site. Page 10 of that report. It is our position that in areas with tidal influences and expectations of more frequent storm surges, that the hybrid strategy for shoreline protection is the most reasonable and effective approach. Page 7 of the DeRosa report. The second WCUP application, although more robust in its design and installation, is likely to be more effective in protecting the upgradient landforms, also page 7. The land is perfectly suitable for the construction of the slope stabilization strategy as designed by T.F. Moran and installed. That's the expert hired by the city to analyze this. That's on page 8 of the DeRosa report. The wetland functions and values will likely be enhanced by the activity given the plantings, the structural niches created by the dry-laid boulders and stones, also page 8. Summit Engineering has evaluated the effects of the construction shoreline stabilization effort and has determined there would be no adverse impact to abutting property. In brief, the design of the slope stabilization strategy by T.F. Moran is a sound solution to the destructive undercutting of the bank. Accordingly, it is our opinion that the current design is appropriate for the site. That's on page 8. Just got a couple more. In our opinion, the second WCUP application was more rigorously designed and considered both engineering and environmental constraints of the site and incorporated appropriate solutions, page 9. It is our collective, meaning DeRosa and Summit, who they brought on board, professional opinion that the current shoreline stabilization design is appropriately designed and installed. We do not believe there is a reasonable and feasible alternative approach to the current design. And finally, and probably most important, that they opine that this is in substantial compliance with Portsmouth zoning ordinance section 10-17.50, which are the requirements for the issuance of a CUP. So in summary, what we have is the living shoreline was not suitable. The storms decimated that shoreline. TF Moran designed, investigated, and provided a plan. It was approved by DES. It was approved by our other expert, Tom Ballestero. It was approved by DeRosa Summit. So from my perspective as a layperson, we have 4 different, if you will, experts opining that what's been done out there was reasonable. Is this coming in the wrong order? Yes. But the issue is, if we had come to begin with, would you have approved it? We have TFM approves it, of course. DES has approved it. Mr. Ballestero has approved it, and DeRosa Summit has approved it. As I said at the outset, or earlier on, you have a memo from TF Moran and me that goes through the requirements for a CUP. I'm happy to go through those one by one. I don't necessarily think it's necessary. You have it. I've gone on kind of ad nauseum now. You've got all these reports. So if the chair wants me to go through all of those, fine. I'm comfortable saying that's it. We are all here to answer your questions, but I personally see this as mistakes were made inadvertently, but the result was what it should have been, and we're asking for your approval. I don't know if there's anything that any of my team want to add now before you start asking questions. Anyone? I don't know if they think I screwed it up totally and don't want to be part of it, or whether they think I've covered it. So
We're still sitting there, so any questions of the applicant? Sure.
Feel a little bit of like it's obfuscation through inundation of material here. So, forgive me for some of the questions. I have no interest in turning this into an investigation of what was done with when. I think the duty of the board is to make sure what's there is right.
Sure.
In my opinion. And so, but part of my question does relate to timing of stuff. I'm confused. You mentioned 39 square feet of fill. I usually don't hear fill in terms of square feet. I usually hear it in terms of volume. So the premise was, the storm happened after this approval, and now the state, and so you altered the state permit. Did the state approve that fill? Was that part of the plan?
That's a very good question, Mr. Coviello. We don't consider it fill. The reason I use the term fill is because the staff report says that we put fill in the wetland. What we put was the hard armor stone, against the slope, and then smaller stones up the top, and you all know what a revetment looks like. Then the proposal is that face will be planted, and then above it is planted.
So no other soil was added to the site other than the stones as part of the revetment?
I'm gonna, not where this happened. This is the stones slightly over the hot line. I don't know whether they brought in any soil to do above the, the stones don't go all the way up to the top of that rise. They go part of the way up, and then there's plantings, and then there's plantings up on top. Is that the as-built, Peter?
Yes. This is the as-built, yes. So it's this area right here.
And there's also in the packet somewhere, there's a rendering, and it gives you a pretty good idea of what it looks like upon completion. But I'm going to turn it over to Jay. He can add some context to this.
I'll be brief. Jay Obie from TF Moran. I'm the lead environmental scientist, wetland scientist. If we could just please return to the slides that were up a few moments ago.
I was waiting for Tim to say next slide, but he never did.
think I can sprinkle in a bit more context here to help everybody better understand how we landed where we're at today. Briefly, 4 or 5 slides. Obviously, we can see significant damage that occurred after the storms. We all know that those storms were very powerful. But January 2024. Next slide, please. One of the things that we do in every shoreline project we work on is to perform what's called a vulnerability assessment. It's models and techniques that are prescribed by the New Hampshire DES Wetlands Bureau that forces us to take a hard look at what anticipated sea level rise may look like. That helps us in the design phase of these projects. Understanding that by the year 2050, we're projected to have a 1.6 foot increase in sea level rise. That is something that we certainly took into consideration in this design. Next slide. One of the other pieces I think that's immensely critical is this tool that's available for the public, and it was designed largely even for decision makers like yourself to use, municipalities, is the New Hampshire Living Shoreline Site Suitability Assessment. There are a number of stakeholders across New Hampshire that took a hard look at all of New Hampshire's coastline, took in a whole bunch of metrics, and determined which areas of New Hampshire's seacoast are most suitable for an entirely green, soft, living shoreline. Next slide. When we look at our site and use that site suitability index, where you see the light color there, the lighter means it's less likely to use a completely green living shoreline. A darker blue color, 5+, means it is more suitable. This site here is not entirely suitable for an entirely green living shoreline, largely because of the slopes. They're very, very steep slopes and incredibly erodible soils, as you saw. Essentially, there was a living shoreline there that existed prior to the storm events. It wasn't able to demonstrate resiliency to those storm events. Next slide. So we landed here in this 3 to 4 area where this model does prescribe the use of some hard armor. Next slide. I want everybody to recognize too, when we visit these sites, we do look to see if there is a possibility to regrade them in a way that would allow for an entirely green living shoreline. And so this image here shows the regrading necessary to achieve a 10-to-1 slope, which significantly impacts the property. It's just not practicable. And even going to a 5-to-1 slope, next slide, is certainly also not practicable, poses large impacts to the property. Next slide. So we designed this to have the hard armor extend up to where the highest astronomical tide is proposed in the year 2050. We want to get that hard armor in place. Next slide. This is what the site, well, it's actually even more vegetated than this. This was taken late summer. I think it's important for everybody to recognize also in our efforts to coordinate with the Conservation Commission and also working with Dr. Tom Ballestero, who's in attendance this evening, we're going to try to green this up even more by incorporating something called vegetative riprap, where within the interstitial areas within the rocks, we infill with sand, and next slide please, and provide additional plantings, native plantings. The hope is that they will green up with time. We're also removing some of the rock material to create 50 planting pockets to put in 50 additional common juniper plants. We intentionally selected that species. As you can see, the junipers to the left, we didn't touch that area in the design. It was because it was largely left intact after that storm event. We're involved with a number of projects up and down the coast as far north as Cape Porpoise, Maine. What we see is the areas that had a lot of juniper bushes were certainly much more resilient than areas that that had other types of vegetation.
Jay,
We use it works.
Jay, right?
Yeah.
Can I remind you, my question was about Phil?
Yeah.
And we're at
I'm
another
getting
presentation.
there, yeah.
I'm growing irritable. I think the
Right.
board is growing irritable. Let's
Okay.
wrap it up, please. I'm sorry for
Understood.
the rest of the board, but we've got to get through this.
Understood. Well, I think that's the last slide, so good timing.
Yeah.
In terms of fill, there is no fill per se below, or in wetlands. Technically, the area below the highest observable tide line is an intertidal zone, a rocky shoreline area. There are some of the toe stones that were installed during the project extend a bit waterward of the highest observable tide line, 39 square feet roughly, relatively de minimis. It would be more impactful to go in, bring in equipment, and try to move these things back.
So there was a debate about whether your group's position is that this is not fill, this is armor?
There's rock material, hard armor, yes, the slightly over.
It wasn't soil, it's fill, it's rock fill.
It's over the HOTL.
It's rock fill.
Right, and the staff memo says fill, but in parentheses it says boulders. So I think that's what it's referencing.
The root of my question is they had a alternative design that got approved by the state that was different than the conditional use permit. Did the state approve what was built? Did the state plan say, yes, they can use this?
Not exactly, not exactly. That was explained by the attorney.
Yes.
They're looking for a revised state approval.
Okay.
We have since submitted a formal amendment request to the state of New Hampshire to amend the permit for the slight increase in lateral expansion of hard
I got
armor.
the answer now. That was the answer.
All right.
There's a new application into the state.
Right.
Great. That was one question. The bark mulch, is that typical of a living shoreline? It feels like it's a foreign material that you would, it just seemed very strange to see bark mulch in the photos that you had.
It's like straw over grass.
Is it not bark mulch?
It is, there is bark mulch in there, and that is quite typical in these situations. It's a great tool to prevent against erosion while the vegetation is maturing.
I'll rely on your expertise there. It was surprising, because that's like the first thing that goes when our gutter gets overflowed is the bark mulch gets all washed away. The size of the boulders, is this photo representative of the boulders out there? I think someone described them the size of desks or cars.
They're 3 to 5 foot diameter boulders.
In that image?
Yes.
The base, right?
The base toe stones are, yes.
Okay. Because after that, I walk my dog on the beach in the summertime and sometimes in the winter, and after the storm, I couldn't believe the size of the boulders they were bringing into Rye Beach. I mean, they were size, those are truly the size of cars. This is nothing like that, and I'm assuming is an engineering analysis due to the velocity of the water that the smaller boulder is going to be fine here.
Well, in smaller boulders, meaning if our engineering team feels that 3 to 5 foot diameter boulders in this instance will adequately protect this property well into the future. It's not wave action necessarily that impacts this property. When we had the flood waters, the rain, the precipitation, coupled with the highest astronomical tide, when the waters receded, there was lateral movement along the shoreline, and that's what undercut the bank and eroded it away.
Okay. My last question is sort of a comment. You're welcome to respond or not. It's a little odd to hear a presentation talking about how the original design was wrong and getting experts saying all that original design was wrong, shouldn't have done that, as if it's not the same applicant that suggested the original design. And so it's now like, well, trust us, now our new experts are much better and it's fine now. And so that's just the feeling I had from the presentation, that it was like there was some other group that did the original design and they were wrong all along, whereas this is the same applicant. So just a comment.
Any other questions of the applicant? since Tony jumped right in.
Not just a question, but a series of comments. Putting all the procedural fumbles aside that may or may not have happened with staff, or to me, that's less important than just recognizing the fact that we have a very impressive collection of professionals in the room that are working on the project. I don't believe there was anything reckless or irresponsible purposely done. And I put a huge amount of weight on the third-party DeRosa executive summary and the bullet points in that summary that was referred to. It gives me a very real level of comfort that we need to leave it as is. Any additional messing with the shoreline is not the right answer. As a matter of fact, it's not simply stating that. It's stating that what was done is appropriate and correct and good. So in my opinion, I don't need to hear any more beyond that.
Yes, Ryan.
How long until the state gets back to you guys on a new approval of this that you guys have done?
Great question. Statutorily, they have 30 days to respond. We're nearing that 30-day timeframe, so we expect to hear shortly.
Okay, because I almost feel like if we vote and approve this and then the state says something else, it's the same mess you guys were just in, right? Because from what I got from the story was you guys came to the planning board, got approved, went to the state, got approved for something else, but didn't come back to us. So why not wait until the state approves before you ask us?
We've had informal discussions with the state already, and feel confident that we will have an approval for this shortly.
And it's an excellent question. If I may just embellish that a little bit. What we expect is that you will grant approval subject to DES approval for any changes. And thinking about in the normal course, we come to you, you approve something, then we go to the state. This has gotten a little bit mixed up, but the process, we believe, should be the same. And we would like to be able to tell the state, we have your approval, because I think that will help with their analysis that we are expecting really within the next week or so. Eric's right here, but I asked him today, he can embellish, and he spoke with Evan Lewis at DES today, and the 30 days runs out sometime around the end of this month. So we are expecting, I don't know, there's going to be approval or RFMIs or what, but as Jay just said, preliminary discussions are, they don't see a problem with this, and the recommendation has been, at this level, is don't change it, leave things the way they are and let DES look at it.
The board can do whatever it wants to on that topic. And sure. I'm not disagreeing with what Joe said, but I am disappointed that we have some very high-level professionals in the room, and you had a plan that was approved that you didn't like. You got a different plan approved knowing that the city needed to revise that approval, and you didn't do it. Then you built it not in accordance with the new plan that you got from the state. There's been some slip-ups here that don't track with this group of professionals that are here, and that's unfortunate. So I just want that clear. It's distressing to see this much expertise and to have these sorts of mistakes happen. Yes, Paul.
Mr. Chairman, would the board consider a site walk with Concom and DES?
I don't know if we get DES.
We can get them there?
That might be
Good luck.
difficult.
When was Concom's previous sidewalk?
Concom's done a site walk.
They've already done it.
Was it? It was pretty recent, I think, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know, a couple months ago.
I think I just remember seeing it on the calendars.
I attended the site walk with the Conservation Commission.
By the way, my comment is a criticism. It's a very sincere criticism. I'm not suggesting that I disagree with the result of the study that the city has commissioned and was presented, but it's very unfortunate that this sort of thing happened the way it happened.
Understood.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm pleased to see that we've actually put it as a condition that all future communications will be, especially with DES, New Hampshire DES will be part of our motion that they come back to the Planning and Sustainability Department, so we will know.
Any other questions to the applicant before we open the public hearing? Yes, Bill.
Yeah, I'm pleased to be educated on the vagaries of this, but I share the chair's concern. We've got a lot of properties along water. We've got sea level rise. We're working on a master plan that's going to have resiliency as one of its themes. It's very important that we know and understand what our waterfront needs to be. We seem to have arrived at about the right place here, albeit it's not what was approved and it's not what the DES approved. We're going to need to have good control over our process. If we're going to maintain the shoreline, we're going to have to believe that people will do what they're authorized to do and they won't do what they're not authorized to do. So I'm probably at the negative end of, the reaction to this.
One question I will add, you mentioned you're going to take out some of the boulders to plant junipers or some other vegetation. So there's yet another modification to what was constructed that you are proposing, is that correct?
Well, I would say boulders. It's above the toe stones, which we call boulders, is riprap, smaller.
So between the toe stones and the top of the slope, somewhere in there?
Yes.
Where the photo showed?
Where the photo showed it, yeah. Okay. There's roughly 50 stones this size will be either moved or repositioned or completely removed to create a planting pocket filled with material and planted with the juniper as well.
Were those planting pockets a part of the review by DeRosa and Summit? Do you know?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicants? Team. Thank you. I'm going to...
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just real quick to that last question. I just want you to know that those stones to be removed are going to be by hand. They're just going to be lifted up and carried out. And also, that factor in the plantings was something, as I recall, that the Conservation Commission wanted to see. That's why it's there.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anybody here or on Zoom wishes to speak to, for, or against this application?
No one on Zoom.
Anybody, last call, anybody wish to speak to? We have,
Our ratings are plummeting.
Yeah.
are you coming up? He is, okay.
Can you go up to the microphone?
You have to talk at a microphone.
You can hand it and then,
To the Planning Department, we would like to express our support for 60 Pleasant Point Drive's amended CUP. It would be good to see this project get started as soon as possible. I think it means completed as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Folks wish to speak to, for, or against this application? And there's nobody on Zoom? No. Last call. We close the public hearing. It's the board's.
I'd like to make a motion, the vote, find that the conditional use permit application meets the requirements set forth in section 10.1017.50 of the ordinance and adopt the findings of facts as presented.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Vote to grant the conditional use permit with the following conditions. I'm not going to read them, 2.1 through 2.6 as in the staff memo.
Second.
Are there any other ones that somebody brought up?
There's a question about a site walk, but I think that was just a question.
If I may comment on my motion.
Do we have, there was a second?
Second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I agree with what Joe said. I think the experts in the room tonight are really what has convinced me this will work. But it's just a little bit of erosion of trust, no pun intended there, of the original design had an engineer involved as well. And so I think it's disappointing, the process, and that's been said over and over again. I don't need to read it again, but I do think what's here is seems like the most appropriate thing.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Thank you. The request of Christina C. Palazzotto, Revocable Trust is owner, and the Coyle Family Revocable Trust is owner, and Back 40 Builders LLC is owner for properties located at 660 Middle Street and Chevrolet Avenue, requesting approval of a lot line revision plan to transfer approximately 6,391 square feet from Lot 19-1 to Lot 19, and 6,383 square feet from Lot 19-2 to Lot 19. These properties are on Assessors Map 147, lots 19, 19-1, and 19-2, and lie in the General Residence or GRA District. Who is here to present this application?
Good evening to the board. Mr. Chair, my name is Ryan Fowler with James Vernon Associates. I'm the survey manager here in Portsmouth. I'm here tonight representing Christina Palazzotto Revocable Trust, the Coyle Family Trust, and Back 40 Builders. We're looking to do a lot line adjustment on 3 parcels. Basically, one of the parcels, 660 Middle Street, tax map 147, lot 19. We'd like to reduce the areas to their back lots that front on Chevrolet Ave, and we'd like to increase the 660 middle lot to the maximum lot size that we can while still providing the lots on Chevrolet with a decent building envelope. And so our proposal tonight would be to take the existing lot 147-19 that's currently 16,552 square feet and amend the lot line to allow 29,326 square feet total. We'd be taking about 6,300 square feet out of lot 19-1 and another 6,300 square feet out of lot 19-2 for this lot line adjustment. Lot 147-19, a good portion of it is currently in the HDC. All the new land that it would be getting would be outside of the HDC. And basically, this would also allow for the extinguishment of the sewer line easement that is currently on lot 19-2 for the benefit of lot 19. Other than that, it's a fairly simple application. We had a couple waivers because right now we are not looking to do much or any development on the existing lots on Chevrolet, and at that time, the applicant would need to amend to the city's requirements and for drainage analysis and driveway permits and sewer connections and all of that. Any questions by the board?
Questions from the applicant? Yes, Joe.
I'm not asking this question because I'm suspicious of what you might be doing with that third lot. This is a genuine, I'm genuinely curious. Do you have the ability to tie into Friend Street for that lot?
We haven't looked at that. From my understanding, the applicant lives in 660 Middle,
Yeah.
and they want some privacy. The lots behind them came up for sale, and they're looking to get as much privacy as possible.
Yeah.
And Portsmouth, that's a premium.
It appears as though there's an opportunity for what you're doing here to create yet another lot with Friend Street as the frontage, that's all. But I'm in support of it. It's a very straightforward, it's a huge piece of property, and it appears to meet all the requirement.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Just a clarification. For some reason in my head, I had thought that the Chevrolet Ave, when that was parceled off from 668 Middle or 660 Middle, that there were approvals attached to that, but maybe there was not.
That's just south.
Yeah, that's all done.
That's a different project. It's the house next door.
No, specifically to these lots, because they have since been cleared and.
They have, yeah.
Yeah. There were no approvals attached?
No.
No? Okay.
Do you know anything about the clearing on those lots?
I know at some point they, those lots out back, I think they're, obviously someone wants to develop at some point. We're trying to do this adjustment before that, and at that time, they have to apply to the planning board or to, building department with the necessary
Okay.
permits.
Yep, okay. Any other questions? Yes, Tony?
Chevrolet Ave, so is that all on private land?
Chevrolet Ave is one of those interesting right-of-ways, and, my predecessor, Jim Vera, has done a lot of work for the city over the years on Chevrolet. That portion, it was actually where the former DPW building used to be, and there is a public easement across the private right of, the fee ownership of the road is privately owned, but there is a public right-of-way across it.
So the city has an easement for
Yeah.
Chevrolet Ave?
Yep. And I think we do show on sheet 3 or sheet 2, we do have an easement plan that kind of highlights a little bit more of the easements clearer of what's out there, because there is a lot of different easements. There's a right-of-way and utility easement that shows up on a different reference plan that was existing prior to the subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is anybody here or on Zoom wish to speak to or for or against this application?
Good evening. My name is Kevin Coyle. I am the owner of both Back 40 Builders and half of the property at 660 Middle Street where we live. I just wanted to address your question. We bought these lots to prevent development in reality. You all have seen what has gone on and what people bring before this board, some of which I find reprehensible. But nonetheless, we wanted to prevent significant development to what is an acre of property behind our backyard. And so we bought it. We don't intend to do anything with the portion of the land that we're taking, other than we planted some trees. There's a magnolia tree that my mother-in-law really likes and wanted to save, and so that was saved. We did clear the trees from the front of Chevrolet. We did that after we had an arborist come and take a look at them and said they were essentially junk trees. And so we are eventually going to market the lots, the 2 lots that are going to be a little smaller, and we are going to eventually sell them, but we want to provide a good buffer for us. So that's what we're doing. Thanks.
Thank you.
That was very helpful.
Anyone else here or on Zoom wishes to speak to for or against this application?
No one on Zoom.
Last call. Going to close the public hearing. Board's pleasure.
We're going to vote on the waivers.
Address the waivers.
Yeah, vote to grant the requested waivers to the subdivision standards from section 6.5 driveways, 7.6 drainage improvements, section 6.7 municipal water services, section 6.8 municipal sewer service, section 6.9 installation of utilities, section 14, I didn't know I was going to keep going here. Section 6.14 erosion sedimentation control, section 8 subdivision review agreement, and section 9.1 improvements and installation bonds, and section 9.2 maintenance bonds.
Second.
Because you have to pick.
I have to pick A. Pick A. Strict conformity would pose an unnecessary hardship to the applicant, and waiver should not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulations.
Still second.
Still have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Keep going.
Sure. Vote to find the subdivision lot line revision application meets the standards and regulations set forth in the subdivision rules and regulations, to adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Vote to grant preliminary and final subdivision approval with the following stipulations: 2.4 through 2.6. Learned my lesson.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Who seconded that? Joe?
Yeah. He was seconding everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is a request of Carlson Family Trust as owner for property at 6 Regina Avenue, requesting a wetland conditional use permit from section 10-10-1750 for the removal of 1,100 square feet of an in-ground pool within the wetland buffer and associated fill and landscaping. The proposal includes approximately 15 tons of structural 1.5-inch stone to fill in the pool area for drainage and an additional layer of screen loam on top. This property is on Assessor's Map 225, Lot 26, and it's in the single residence or SRA district. Who is here to present this application?
Hi, good evening. My name is Josh Carlson. I'm the owner of 6 Regina Road. I'm submitting a conditional use permit application for the removal of our in-ground pool. This was previously submitted to the Conservation Commission with a few conditions that they would like to see met first, and so one of those was installing a silt fence before work was to begin. That has since been installed in the lines outlined in the picture here. No fertilizer shall be used within the wetland buffer zone, which we've obviously agreed to. The other one is to use a buffer-friendly seed mix. So we're going to be using the New England Conservation Wildlife mix from the resource that they provided us online. And they also requested that we install boundary markers every 25 foot of the vegetation area along the wetlands, which we have completed.
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant? Good job.
Thank you.
And open up public hearings. Anyone here or on Zoom wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? Last call. Going to close the public hearing. You may be seated. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm happy to make a motion. Vote to find that the conditional use permit application meets the requirements set forth in section 10.1017.50 of the ordinance and adopt the findings of facts as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Vote to grant the conditional use permit with the following conditions: 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4, as outlined in the staff memo.
Second.
Any discussion?
I would just hope that it seems like there was an opportunity here, or maybe an opportunity in the future, to make this kind of a staff approval thing.
We're considering some changes to the section of the ordinance for that reason, in part. You're welcome to participate.
Just did.
Yep.
Just need a vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you. We have a preliminary conceptual consultation at the request of Iron Horse Properties for property at 105 Bartlett Street. Requesting preliminary conceptual consultation. This property is on Assessors Map 164, Lot 4-2, and is in Character District 4-L1, or CD4L1, and the Office Research Districts. Who is here to present this application?
Good evening, Alex Monastero with Iron Horse Properties and Chimberg Builders. We're here tonight to present preliminary conceptual plans for your review and consideration. The package that you're getting right now are some supplemental plans that hopefully will help to show the vision for the site and the way that it connects to other sites in the area. We thought this would be an important part of the presentation so you can see the big picture here. On the cover sheet that you just received, and it's up here on the board as well, there are several key elements that I wanted to point out about the surrounding site. So the proposed development site is in the middle of, Bartlett Street, Islington Street, and Maplewood Ave. It runs along North Mill Pond and along the railroad tracks. It's just beyond the multifamily project that is currently under construction. So the trail that you see outlined in brown is part of the multifamily development that has been approved and is under construction there. The next portion, the trail that you see in green, and the 6 units on this small plan, and if you flip over on the other side, it's blown up, so you can see those units larger as well. That's the proposal that we're here to contemplate with you all tonight. As part of that proposal on the 2.75 acre site, we're showing the 1,000 feet, linear feet, along North Mill Pond, extension of the trail there that would connect to the existing trail that has been approved and is under development. The Iron Horse Properties, who is the owner of the parcel, also has the right for an easement that would connect all the way to Maplewood Ave. So though the intent of the presentation tonight is to talk about a potential for a condo development on the site, really it's a much larger picture, I think, in our opinion, to be able to create connectivity between Islington Street and Maplewood Ave for this trail system. As you go through your packet, you'll see I included a number of pages from the North Mill Pond Greenway master plan. So this is something that the city's been thinking about and working on and dreaming about for many, many years. And so we're excited about the opportunity to help make that dream come true here on the site. Obviously, this involves residential development as well, which would help to fund the ability to put this trail in. But I think it would be an invaluable public resource to make that connection, not just for the residents that would live on this site and the abutting site, but for the city of Portsmouth as a whole. You can also see in the package towards the end, I included some aerial photos, and the top corner of all those photos is the year that they were taken, so you can sort of get a picture of what the site looks like now and what it has looked like historically. And the intention of including those in this package is to show this is sort of leftover land beyond the railroad tracks in between North Mill Ponds. It has, been cleared and been, desolate in many different times over the last 20 years. There's a lot of work that's been done to the shoreline of North Mill Pond as well. So when you go out there now, there's a lot of beautiful living shoreline already, and we're excited about the opportunity to enhance that. So along with the trail, the Greenway Trail that we would propose, we also would love to do a landscaped pocket park. Everything, of course, at this moment is very preliminary, but what you can see on the sheet is outlined in green an area that we've identified for a pocket park. Beyond just being a public resource, we think it could also offer an educational opportunity for residents who enjoy that trail system to learn about the migratory birds and the natural vegetation that exists on site. We would, of course, incorporate a landscape plan and more details like that along the way as we go further in the development. I also wanted to just highlight, this is in the CD4 L1 zone, which is 3,000 square feet per unit for the allowable density. This is a 2.75 acre site. So, I quickly did the math. It could support up to 38 units just by the density calculations. We're here before you with 6 units. You probably realized that the first plan that we submitted to you, which you may have seen, had 8 units, 2 3-plex buildings, and a duplex. We were in front of the Conservation Commission last week, and we heard a lot of feedback from them about creating more open spaces in between the buildings. You'll see that between the plan that we presented previously and the new plan that you have tonight, we've also expanded the pocket park area to create more natural space on the site. And we've created the trail. The trail as it exists today on the site, which you can see in some of those aerial photos, is not exactly 25 feet from North Mill Pond. In some instances, it's closer. It was important to the Conservation Commission that be reclaimed and run along the 25-foot buffer, and so we've shown that change as well on the plan. We're really excited about the potential and the vision here, and so we wanted to come early in the design phase and get your feedback and thoughts about this development so that we can use that information as we move forward in the full design. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for coming in and having this conversation. Questions, discussion, input? Applicant. Yes, Bill.
I'm a little confused. So your intent is to build within the wetlands?
Oh, no. Our intent is to build within the 100-foot buffer of North Mill Pond, but there are no wetlands.
it's called a wetlands buffer, but it's not on wetlands.
That's correct, yeah. And the 50-foot area is preserved in this plan. So from 0 to 50, there are no buildings proposed and no roadway infrastructure proposed. Just that trail, which is a requirement in the zoning ordinance in this area, that the trail be placed along the 25-foot buffer. So that's where we're showing it here. That's the dark green line on the, you got to flip. Sorry, I printed double-sided. But if you flip it over and you see the large plan. So that's the 10-foot reserved right-of-way on the 25-foot line. And then the dark green shaded area coming off of the water. And I can point to it over here. It'll be a little easier.
Just don't touch the screen.
Don't touch the screen.
Is that on, Alex? Is that mic on? No.
Can you hear me?
There, yeah, if you hold it
You
close.
just have to hold it close to your mouth.
Oh, okay. So this area here is the 50-foot buffer from North Mill Pond. This area here is between 50 and 100 feet for the most part. There are some areas that are outside of the 100-foot buffer, but primarily these 6 units will be between the 50 and the 100-foot buffer.
So they are in the buffer.
That's correct. But the overall big picture here is that having these 6 residential units allows for a much larger public benefit, which is these 6 units fund the ability to create this connection, which is a benefit, I think, to the city as a whole, and to the recreation and the connectivity, and to the master planning that has gone into this greenway. And without some type of development on this site, it's not going to fund itself.
Thank you. I was out there on a site walk with Concom and Peter on a drizzly evening, fading light, low tide, and I was really struck by the contrast between the beauty of North Mill Pond and the blight of an abandoned rail yard.
It's not abandoned.
Which is not really abandoned, but it really looks like an abandoned rail yard. I mean, it's something, this seems to be an area of the city where something needs to happen. And I like this project because of what it enables the developer to do, to make some improvements in that area. And I hope that you have it on your documents as GSM has that shed or something out there. I hope at some point it extends closer to Maplewood where it will do something with the rest of this. It really, it looks absolutely horrible, all of that property out there, against the beauty of the pond.
Yes, Tony.
Can we talk about the trail for a second? There's a previous approved project to the page left, I think it's west, that has a trail as part of the approval.
Yep, it's highlighted right on here.
The green trail, is that, if this, is the entire trail part of, is it going to get constructed whether or not this construction moves forward? Or is this a contingency thing, that this site has to be, this trail section is not going to get developed unless this site is developed?
Yeah, so Iron Horse Properties and Trimberg Builders own this section of the land.
Yep.
The only way that we can foresee paying for the construction of the trail on the parcel is if we are able to develop the site and, make money building the buildings and selling the buildings to help fund that improvement. This is not being constructed or contemplated being constructed by anybody else at this time.
There's no existing easement for that trail.
Yes, Iron Horse Properties also has an easement here that they secured on their own, which makes the connection to Maplewood. So the only parties that are benefiting from that easement right now are Iron Horse Properties, both here in the green and here in the red.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Andrew.
I could be having an off day, which has happened before. How do you access this site?
Yeah, it comes in from the Cathartic site. That's a great question. So when you look at this, which I know on your page is probably really hard to see, but This is Bartlett Street here.
Yeah.
This is Reese. These are the approved multifamily buildings.
With you.
Yep, and then there's a connecting road. So we'll connect from the existing infrastructure on that multifamily site. We'll extend into our site. And so that dark black that you see, again, this is very preliminary. It's just representative of where we think a road would connect from this site onto our site.
So, and this is a question again for the city, if there's a 15-foot minimum railroad setback, does the railroad have to say yes to that building within that setback?
It's for structures.
It's for structures,
For-
so they
okay.
can put the road there.
Okay. I saw some moving utility lines, that's what I was asking.
Yes, we are intending to move the existing sewer line that is shown in purple on your second page there.
Yes, Bill.
I'm going to try again, and I apologize for
No,
being
go ahead.
inexpert on this. But I'm reading section 10.1017.50, which sets the criteria that must be satisfied for the granting of a conditional use permit for uses, activities, or alterations within a wetland buffer. And you have to satisfy all of these requirements. And 3 is that there's no adverse impact on the wetland functional values of the site or surrounding properties, if I'm reading the regulations properly.
Right.
And this is in the wetlands buffer construction, right?
Yes.
And
That's what we're talking about.
so is the premise that there'll be no adverse impact on the values of the buffer by putting 6 housing units there and a road and accompanying activity?
Six. It
Oh,
sounds
okay,
6.
sorry.
3 duplexes.
Yeah, so I can offer two pieces of information in regards to that. One is, this is very preliminary, so we don't have any real details on that at the moment. There would, of course, be an impact between the 50 and the 100-foot buffer. There are ways to offset and improve those impacts with landscaping, with enhancing, with restoring. Mr. Giuliano is the only one who came to the site walk, so he got to see, but this is really, if you go to the site, and I'd be happy to host another site walk with the board if they'd like to. If you come to this site, this is really going to be an improvement for the state of the land out there. There's no ecological benefit to what exists right now, and I think that with some intention and with some proper planning, we could really create a habitat out there that is much better for North Mill Pond and that supports the wetlands much better than what exists today. And that comes with an impact of having houses, because the houses is how we fund those sort of things, and it's how we fund this connection. And I heard the Conservation Commission say, both on our site walk and in our hearing last week, that they're nervous about protecting North Mill Pond. And in my opinion, there's no better way to protect it than to really thoughtfully plan a site out, to allow the public to see the resource that we're protecting and educate them about that, but also be really purposeful about the protections that we offer in the 25-foot buffer there.
But your premise is there will be no adverse impact on the wetland functional values of the site.
That will be up to us to prove as we go further. I think my opinion is that there are ways that we can supplement, that we can make it better, even with putting buildings in the 50 to 100-foot buffer. But that's why we're here for your feedback tonight. I also feel very strongly that the public benefit of creating this connecting trail system in the Greenway and the community park and the educational resources is much more powerful than the impact in a railroad lot that has had a lot of impact next to a multifamily site, just having 6 more units. I think there is such a large potential benefit here that needs to be weighed with the impact of the 6 units.
But this is not a discretionary, it's an absolute.
Okay, well, that's something I think I hear what you're saying, and we've discussed that particular criteria before, and it ties into what Tony's question was earlier. There could be a change in some of these criteria fairly soon, but related to that, you're showing a lot of green, and I realize it's
Yes.
Super early. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you're proposing to build the trail, but then would you be doing anything to enhance the area where the latter part of the east part of the site?
In the 25-foot buffer between North Mill Pond and the trail?
between the 50 and the 100, and between the trail and the railroad, basically. You're doing the park, that's a pretty big change. What else?
Yeah, so the pocket park here, there will also, we are intending to move this sewer line. There will be new driveway here. There will be 6 new units as we show proposed, but there will also be a comprehensive landscaping plan. There will also be drainage studies done to make sure that we're treating the site.
Well, you have to do that where you're developing it, but what about to the east? Are you going to continue a vehicle connection to the east using your easement or anything else?
You mean here?
Yes.
No, there's no intention with our development at this point to have any vehicle access there. The trail could connect, if you flip back to the first page, that red dashed line, the Greenway Trail could connect over that easement.
And I have one other question, then I'll recognize the other folks, but have you done any phase 1 or phase 2 site assessments of the area? Is it clean, dirty, do you know?
We're in the process of doing those right now, so it's still to be determined.
If you find contaminants, do you propose to do something?
Of course.
So that could be potentially an enhancement of that area as well. I think Andrew, maybe I got it wrong. Andrew and then Joe.
With respect to the proposed railway crossings or overpass, have you had preliminary talks with the railroad about those?
Yeah, so we are not proposing in this site any railroad crossings. What you see, those, do you mind going to the next page, Peter? These, another green item here, these are view easements. So that is what crosses the railroad.
I'm on this page.
Is that 13?
Okay, yeah, so
page
that's the city's master plan.
Yeah.
So that's something that the city contemplated at some point. It's not some, I put those pages in so you guys could see that even back in 2019, this whole area was identified as wanting this exact project, and so that's what we're trying to deliver. But in terms of the development of this site, there are no railroad crossings. These are the view easements. Everything is happening on this side of the railroad in our proposal at this point.
Can you label it next time, just so I knew that?
Sure, absolutely.
And then, just again for clarity, for my sake and probably everyone else's, to overlay where these units are on this type of map.
Sure.
That would be incredibly helpful.
Okay.
Joe.
Just a couple things. I did note right away, I appreciate the view easements at the ends of the street, so the buildings are positioned so that as you're going down the full length of the streets in the neighborhood, you're still seeing all the way across the pond. That's important. Thank you for that. And you spoke very clearly to the public benefit to this. When I look at this page 13 that shows the Greenway line in its completeness, if you will, for lack of a better term, it's to me one of the most exciting things that could happen to the city. And anything that supports this, to me, is one of the biggest public benefits that we could have imagined happening in our city. We always talk about projects that, we always wish that projects would give a more real, tangible public benefit. But such a large piece of completing this necklace, if you will, the public benefit is huge, and the educational benefit is huge as well. I mean, to overprotect this area and not give people access to it is the wrong direction, in my opinion. I'm excited about seeing this page 13, which again is the city's master plan, become reality.
Tony.
A question, then a point to add. The image that was up there before that shows the utilities, there's very thick line work there. Is that because that's the area that's going to be impacted for excavation, or is that like we're not really sure where the sewer line is somewhere in this vicinity? What's the reason for that width?
Yeah, I assume that is an approximate area that it could be within in those areas. Is that reasonable, Neil?
I think,
It's an
yeah, it's an
easement.
easement.
Oh,
the easement?
easement.
Is that what it is?
You can see the utility lines. I mean, they're hard to see up there.
Oh, yes, underneath.
And so there's a distance on each side.
Got it.
They're in the center.
All right. And then a point that is going to come back is that, this necklace, this path, if it's 99% a path, it's nothing.
Yeah. Yep. It's got to be complete.
It's got to be complete. And so that's, so I'm not going to see value in that path until it's complete, and just as a personal opinion.
Yeah, and Iron Horse did go ahead at the, and secure that easement to make the connection to Maplewood, which I agree is invaluable in, the future of the trail being a huge public benefit.
Are you proposing a connection using your easement to Maplewood?
I think at this time, what we would be proposing is that we would construct the trail area along the parcel that we own, and we would work with the city to give them that easement so that they could apply for funds and construct the remainder of the trail.
So it's not passable even on foot right now?
Oh, it's completely passable. Yep.
Okay.
And actually, if you come for a site walk, and Mr.
Let's drive down
Giuliano
it all
did,
the time.
you can drive all the way down. Yep.
The board want to do a site walk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be exciting. Just one more quick question.
Yes,
to Peter.
Joe.
I'm sorry?
You, Joe. You got it?
One more quick question to Peter. So the parcel's on the right side of Maplewood. How much of that is already integrated into the developments under construction as a requirement to the approval of those projects?
If you go to that first page, I put it in brown, which was a mistake on my part, but it shows what I did to get this brown line here is I traced the trail that is being constructed on that site.
Yeah.
So that is what is already obligated, nothing beyond
No,
that.
I think
is
you meant
obligated.
I was asking about just in general to the projects on the right side, page right
Rains
of
Ave.
Maplewood. Go ahead.
So Rains, which is
All the way up here.
right there,
Yeah.
where the cleaners were, that has a trail, and then we have the city park, and then it connects to 53 Green. So they'll all have.
So we're in the
That
clear.
trail,
We're in the
that's
clear
already-
for
You have
all
to
of
go
this
down
happening.
Maplewood.
Yeah, you have to go down Maplewood to get to that, but.
Right.
Yes, and that connects to Bohenko Gateway Park.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the other direction connects to the Greenway.
Right.
Pretty impressive.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I said I wasn't going to ask anything because I won't get a vote on this anyways, because I'm an abutter. But I'm curious, the red line where you say you have the easement beyond the property, it looks like it crosses the railroad tracks, and I don't go down that end enough. It does. Peter's shaking his head.
It does not, and it
does
is
not,
possible.
okay.
This is very preliminary
Yeah.
sketch plan, but
I just
the
wanted to make
easement
sure, like,
itself
that
does not.
actually
Yeah.
easement is
what
open, because I'm like,
confused
it's
me.
hard to tell from this plan.
That's what confused me, too.
Yeah. I'm like, it really looks like it crosses them.
Okay.
That's all.
Just comes inland.
If the site walk doesn't have to occur in January,
Oh, that would be nice.
that would be better.
What a warm day.
Our last site walk, it was
It's
very
gonna
cold and rainy and dark, so it will be better this time.
I think we would wait until it's soon to be before you, after they go to Conservation Commission and TAC,
I think
which might be. Nicole,
my request would be any
we do it sooner.
feedback that we can get is really invaluable to us. We had, as I mentioned, we had a Conservation Commission meeting. As you can imagine, the 50 to 100 foot area of the buffer is very important to them. They gave us some suggestions that we think that we'll be able to incorporate into this plan, but there are some suggestions that will not be viable here. And so we're absolutely excited to work with the Conservation Commission and incorporate their feedback. They gave us a lot of great ideas, but I'm hoping that this board can also give us some indication of their temperature if we cannot meet every request of the Conservation Commission, which I feel is unlikely, because one of them, for example, was that this be a net zero eco-village, which, I just know we cannot meet that. What is the path forward for us? Is there a path forward to make this a reality?
This is all non-binding, so feel
Yeah.
free to make a comment.
Yeah, I was just gonna, in terms of offering advice, I think what Bill mentioned is gonna be the crux of everything, right? And so really demonstrating the existing conditions and what we get if nothing's done on this site. So that's where I would spend a lot of emphasis.
Sure.
In your public presentations and your information to us.
Andrew?
I'll give you a compliment after all these things. While today it is a storage facility, obviously in the future it may not be, but I can appreciate that these buildings are condensed to only behind the storage building, so you are not blocking anybody else's view while still respecting the view corridors. It would be a huge priority of mine to see that maintained, so that you're not blocking McDonough Street residents or Cabot Street residents. And beyond that, on these two different plans, you mentioned that one of them is more recent than another. There's no hammerhead on one and there is on the other. What is the design of that roadway for TAC purposes?
Yeah, so on the cover sheet that you have, the page 1 of the packet, yes, it shows a small hammerhead at the end. It's very small, so it might be hard to see. On the second page, the hammerhead is in between buildings 2 and building 3. And again, preliminary, but we moved to a larger separation between what I would call the horizontal and the vertical units here, and put a turnaround. And I do completely own, it is hard to see because this is just a sketch and we really just wanted to get some initial feedback, but this here would be the I touched it again. This here would be the turnaround rather than having the turnaround at the end. And the reason that we did that on this version was to be able to keep expanding this pocket park this direction. So as much as we can condense the development in between these view corridors, we can keep bringing the pocket park and expanding the natural vegetated area here, which we feel is very important. At the end of the day, could it be a turnaround here and or here? Either one is a possibility as we get into design.
Lastly, when the Green and O'Neill 30 and 50 Kate Street development was done, we heard quite a bit of public feedback regarding the design of having 50 some odd boxes planted right on the street.
Sure.
While you do not face a public streetway or, you're looking at the water, so it's almost like a unilateral vision of this. To avoid rectangle boxes is a huge priority of mine from a design perspective. We don't have design review, and obviously within the constraints that you are already working within, it would be really, really appreciated not to have just rectangular boxes planted here.
Understood, yep. We are, considering that as part of our development, have talked to a local architect, and so we will be thoughtful in the design of these homes.
Just one other comment, sort of kind of where Andrew was going as well. I think it's really going to have to be a sensitive landscaping and architecture to that building there, because you possibly creating points of community conflict where you have people walking their dogs, walking their bikes all hours, and you have people who probably are going to be spending a lot of money for what is, a waterfront view or whatnot. It's, this could be industrial, this could be waterfront. I don't know what someone's going to view it as because you have a railroad in your backyard. But I just think some sensitivity to not having a design that invites conflict between the public and the homeowners who are going to want some privacy. Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's what I would be looking for.
Thank you, yep.
Paul?
I think you'll see when you go on a site walk that between the rail that's in use, right, that, what we talk about, it's primarily LPG moving along there. And,
lumber and propane.
and the actual pond, like privacy is probably just not going to be a thing.
I can't wait to get you all up there to see it. It's really exciting.
I live it.
I look at it from the other side.
I think the key is going to be the public-private trade-off.
Yes.
And what you're going to be doing in terms of the path, is the park going to be a public park? Is it going to be just for the residents?
Public, absolutely, yep.
And what you'll be doing to enhance the site and may possibly clean it up, I think that it's going to turn on those issues, I think.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other comments for the, yes?
I just want to say that my best knowledge, which is many years at this point, we've never allowed anyone to build in the buffer brand new when it's not already established building. So I just want to point that out because there's going to be public outcry about this and probably all my neighbors. So I'm just putting out there now that there probably is going to be a lot of people that have an issue with building in the 100-foot buffer. That's all.
Oh.
promise my last question. I guess from a logistical and timing perspective, is it 115 Bartlett, or the apartment development is already actively underway? To then complete that and then begin construction on these townhomes while using their driveway, is that ironed out
so
somewhere?
all of the legal right to reserve for us to be able to do that, and I didn't clarify this, but it is different ownership between this parcel and the multifamily parcel. We have agreements and mutual interests between the two groups, but Chimberg is, developing this site separate from that site that has already been developed, but the right has been reserved for us to bring the utilities over and bring the road over, so.
I just mean like the actual trucks and supplies and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's not an enviable position.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
I think I'll need it.
So we did the CIP, historic district boundaries. We have council. We went through these issues at our workshop. I think they're teed up and ready to go, but if folks want to discuss them briefly, we can do that.
I would just add that lot line revision for 660 Middle. That lot is proposed to be included in its entirety.
Into the HDC.
Into the HDC, so I think we would want to just make sure that we include the now revised lot line
Part of that.
in the HDC.
Good catch.
We have approved it, but even though it's not finalized and recorded, we can do that.
Unless I'm thinking of the wrong property. I thought we were removing it from the HDC.
No, some are being removed and some are being, in their entirety, added.
If you front Middle Street, you're included all the way. That's the standard.
Talking about the one, Eric's property.
No, we're not talking about
I was
that.
talking about the one that was.
The one that was just here.
The lot
Okay,
line
all
revision.
right.
The lot line revision we just did.
The gentleman who bought it for protection.
All right, yeah,
Which I'll bring it up.
that's what okay.
Just make a note that that's part of what
Right.
we're recommending.
Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry, are we on?
Go ahead.
Public comment or discussion here? My only parcel that I was questioning was the first one at 43 Austin Street. Is that just continuity of that boundary?
Let me see where that is.
I don't have that.
Oh, you're talking about that land that goes back there?
Yes.
That's behind the historic house. That's all its land. That's all one lot, to the best of my knowledge.
I'm aware.
So what's
So-
your question?
We're removing that from the historic district?
I don't think so.
No, I think that's the graphic that's hard to understand.
It's just hard to read the graphic. It's staying the same. I think it's there and it's staying the same.
Yeah.
The black outline is existing.
Are you saying
The
43
peach is
Austin
the
Street?
proposed.
Encompasses the whole lot.
The following parcels are proposed to be removed from the historic district, 43
Right
Austin
here.
Street.
Included in entirety.
Am I-
Yeah, but he's reading the memo.
Yeah, it's this one.
Or this orange.
No, I think it's,
It's this one here, the orange.
If you click on it, it shows you which one it is. It's the one after Dr. Beck's house, what used to be Dr. Beck's house.
There's one that goes.
I don't think that's the
that
right
one goes all
property.
the way up.
It's that one.
This
the
one
one that
is.
goes up to Austin Street? Is that the one you're talking about, Andrew?
Yeah, the one that's selected,
43.
yeah, is
So-
set to be removed.
Correct.
And I'm
Oh.
just wondering
That is Dr. Beck's house.
why that is.
Because currently it just has a corner
Corner.
in the HCC, and so they just,
Yeah.
and it doesn't front on middle. So they're just, that's gonna come out.
Yeah. With little background of that, it's currently owned by the Historical
Yeah, it's one of those
Society.
historic houses in the city.
And it's like got actual historical relevance where they hosted treaty talks and balls there, and as well as Dr. Beck's house next door, which ironically is not in the historic district but has since been preserved from the owner. And the Historical Society owns that, and the only way that they can utilize it is by having a museum or by creating affordable housing. And I think that they've had preliminary talks with the city regarding that, but ultimately it struck me as something that has pretty overwhelming historical relevance.
That's a great catch, and also if they are applying for grants, if it is within the historic district, that benefits them, doesn't it?
Like significantly under tax things, and I may be overstepping my authorities here, but
I have some information you guys don't. It's extremely deed restricted at this point.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they could only do something, they can do very little with it, I can tell you that much.
With respect to what Joe just said,
This might
a lot
help
of their future use of that property hinges on receiving national, statewide, and historic grants.
Which would
I make a
require
motion.
them to be designated in some way.
They could go for a national designation and don't still have to be in the HDC.
I think we have a motion about to be made.
I make a motion to keep this in the HDC and send a letter to the Historic District Commission about this property, that our intent to keep it in, and do they want to add Dr. Beck's property, to it? Just say, hey, ask them to revisit it one more time before they come back with an opinion.
And again, the only reason I'm bringing it up is because
I think it's great.
Yeah, I know that
Good
they.
catch, Andrew, yeah. For
Want to
consideration.
send it back to, so there's a motion to send it back to the HDC.
Yeah, the motion is two parts. One is to keep this property that you highlighted right now, the
43 Austin.
43 Austin, in the HDC, in the Historic District, I keep saying. And to ask the Historic District Commission, Part B is to ask the Historic District Commission about these two parcels.
About 53 Austin.
The one next to it.
53 Austin.
Right, because it cuts the house in half, right? Yep.
Yeah, they do share a party wall.
I don't think there's an emergency, a time emergency. That's why I think we can just ask them about that one.
Was there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Housing Committee referrals on Gateway. I think the conversion we agreed to put forward to the master plan. Am I remembering correctly? or-
What's next?
Gateway zoning?
Gateway, these are the map amendments. So after the work session, we added,
All right, there was.
Yes, you're
there
right.
was
I
one.
think that was
We
meant to
added-
go to the, yeah.
so the properties, we had, I think, 10 properties, but we added an additional one for discussion here. Yeah, let me zoom in. From the work session.
That one, right.
Yep.
There was debate about that at the work session.
Oh, right,
So we
that's
added-
thermo for
added-
sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I disagreed, but it's not a battle I want to fight. I'm ready to make a motion if you want.
Any other discussion? Ready for motion? Okay.
Vote to recommend the City Council schedule first reading on the proposed map amendments as presented.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
All right, and then section 10.812 was the conversion, and that was the one that you said to consider during the master plan. But I think since this was a referral from council, you would want to take a vote to send that motion back to council.
If you'd like a motion? Chair?
Shouldn't the motion be to postpone consideration of that until we get further into the master plan process?
I think we have to respond.
Right. The vote was to not consider amending the ordinance at this time. This matter should be considered during the master plan process.
It's a recommendation to the City Council.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Motion,
As stated, then would work, yeah.
yeah. I'll make a motion as stated here to recommend the City Council
Second?
not consider amending.
Second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, now on to the mechanical units. The the chair and I, after the work session, made some revisions and added definitions for mechanical system and power generator. And then added a section for power generators to be set back a minimum of 5 feet from any lot line. And then that mechanical systems are exempt from building coverage, and also they're not included as structures, so we don't count them as structures. And then we had a definition for each to further clarify what they are.
And the 5 feet was from the fire department.
Right.
Building code required, I believe.
So just to be clear, we're voting on the red edited text on.
Correct.
Oh.
I have an objection, but I know I mentioned it during our little work session, and so I won't be supporting the motion. I know there hasn't been one made, but I didn't know where one's going.
I make a motion, we vote to recommend to City Council hold first reading on the proposed zoning amendments as presented.
Second.
Now you can tell us your objection.
I think this 8-foot fence thing it bothers me. I know it's just part of picking it up, but it bothers me and I can't support it.
It's already in.
Yeah, that's already in, we're not
Well,
changing
it's part
that.
of the red text, I thought.
No.
Oh, it's already in. It's already done.
So that was what was amended this spring.
Right, that's showing you how we changed it already.
All right, I thought this was being.
And then below it, when it under 10.515.10 yards, there's a paragraph, and then there's additional zoning text. And the red in that text is what's.
So we're not voting at all on 10.515.13.
No.
No.
No, fences are already done.
We're starting with 10.514,
Yep.
Right.
And definitions.
going to just before planning department recommendation. Just that red text. So now you're happy, right?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Just trying to tell you, you can't do anything about it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right. Solar.
So for solar, after the work session, we made changes to the definition of roof-mounted solar, so that it reads, it's a roof-mounted solar energy system is less than or equal to in area of the roof to the roof area of the structures on the lot. So that would mean if you had a garage, you could also put solar on. And then
There was a mistake.
Oh, right.
In the draft we had
Yes.
at the workshop.
That I
was a
brought up.
mistake. That was a
Right.
boo-boo.
Yes.
It's out.
So like
So-
it's corrected now, right?
Right,
Correct.
that's not even, we're not considering amendments for that section.
Okay.
So we're just leaving it as is.
Okay. Good to know.
So it should be
Yeah.
pretty simple now.
Motion, vote to recommend the city council hold first reading on the proposed zoning amendments as presented.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
This will make Counselor Denton happy since he referred this
Mm-hmm.
a while back.
Well, except he won't be on
Right.
council when it
Well-
comes forward.
I'll be in the audience.
Tip O'Neill's big day.
You have to do the parking on
Like Mr. Denton
Yes.
About sustainability objectives?
Really simple one on parking for ADU.
Well,
Oh, is that it?
the parking is for just general requirements for a single-family dwelling. We can't require more than one
Oh, right.
space, so
Misstated. Getting late.
that changed to, in our table, we had less than 500 square feet was a half a space, 500 to 750 is one space, and then over 750 is 1.3. We changed the first to 500 square feet or less, so that a unit that's 500 square feet would be in one of the categories. And then that would be half a space, and then more than 500 square feet would be one
Got that
space.
space. Yep.
So that's to be consistent with the new state law.
Good to follow state law.
Vote to recommend the city council hold first reading on the proposed zoning amendments as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, and then the ADU section.
Just keeps going.
This is it.
It's mostly crossed out.
It's mostly
2 years
crossed
of
out.
work.
We went through this with legal and came up with this draft to be consistent with the new changes. The only thing I'll state is that in the use table, we have it permitted in CD4 and CD5 where single families are not permitted, but there are single family residences that are in those districts. I think if you permit this, that those could then have ADUs.
They're permitted but pre-existing non-conforming.
Right.
Which aren't really considered permitted.
Right.
Because pre-existing non-conforming isn't permitted.
So what you're saying is everything built after a certain date, in other words, well, sorry, it is getting
So
late.
if you want to change that to not permitted, we can make that change.
I think we have to be consistent because it's like the drive up at Citizens, it's pre-existing
Right.
non-conforming.
All right, so we can change CD4.
I get the
Yeah.
point, but. So there'd be a change.
Change from CD5, for CD5 and CD4 from permitted to not permitted for an ADU. And then, so this is just leaving it as, it can't be less than 750, but also the maximum size is 750. The state law allows you to, the municipality to go above that, but it seems like the ADUs that we've had are you have no problem meeting that 750. A lot of them are much smaller, but it's up to the board.
We talked about that at the workshop.
Yep.
I personally would rather just leave it at the 750
Yeah,
for
I don't
now. I
see a-
think
I
we'll
don't
get
see a reason
pushback
to
if we
increase
try
it,
to
yeah.
go up higher.
Let's leave it.
Yeah, I don't see a reason to increase it.
Because we got pushback 2 years ago when
Yeah.
we tried to make it bigger.
Andrew?
Not too long ago, my neighbor knocked on my door, and I don't know this neighbor, so that was quite alarming.
Where was your neighbor?
It was at about 8:30 in the morning. He said, "Do you sit on the planning board?" And I said, "Yeah." And now I know his home well, and he has an existing garage with an unfinished space above it. That unfinished space happens to be more than 750 square feet. And he said, "Why can't I put my ADU above my garage? It's already existing. It was somewhat built with that in future mind." And I said, "Well, that's state law." And he said, "Well, it is perfectly designed for an ADU, but I have too many square feet." And I said, I don't have an answer for you. Now, this house is down on Jones. He has neighbors like outside of 200 feet. And it just wasn't exciting not to have like a really practical answer for him, as somebody who, this guy.
Tell him to look at the definition of gross living area.
Right, because it gets a
I can
great
also tell you
closet.
that he came and
Yeah.
came to the planning board and got an approval for an ADU, and he was asking for a 900 and some square foot ADU. The planning board granted it with the condition that he reduce it to 750 square feet.
Yeah,
I remember.
and I guess like in practicality, it was much more difficult to reduce it down to 750, and that's where his issue lies. And
That's his choice. That's
There,
his.
zoning cannot cover every condition, and that's why we have a ZBA.
yeah, so I was like, as unfortunate as it may be, it was one of those contradictions in my head where this guy's raising his hand and trying to create one, but couldn't because he had too much. That's it.
Do we need a motion
We
for
need
this
a
last
we
thing?
need a motion to adopt the revisions to the ADU section as amended.
We have to send it
So
for first
moved.
reading.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.